This is Sean. Sean lives in Makongeni area in Nairobi, Kenya. He is 27 years old and he is trying to recreate the story of his life. Recreate? Well, let's rewind back to where it all began. You see, Sean works at a local bank where he has been working since he completed college. Back then, Sean was your typical youth who wanted what most youth his age wanted: a beautiful family, a nice house, a nice job, and enough moolah just to enjoy his free time. But life thrust marriage at Sean like you would trust a bribe in the hands of an unwilling official. He did not go looking for it like some men who plan engagements with a ring, bended knees, and starry eyes. He was a bystander in life when fate just veered off its path and hit him with a wife. You see, what happened was that he liked this girl, Tanisha, who lived with her parents 200 meters from his house. She was older and kinda sexy. She also had a way of making him laugh. If you knew Sean, you would know that making him laugh was not something easy. Her dad was a badass who never smiled with anyone in the estate because when you smile with these common, excitable boys, they will take it as an invitation and open season to start speaking to your daughter. They will get too familiar. So he always called, ignoring Sean and other young boys in the estate. But Sean is the type of guy who sleeps through the eye of the needle, silently. Before long, Tanisha was sneaking into his house on her way from work, making them a meal, and they were boffing like rabbits. One chill Sunday afternoon, she told him casually, as they lay in bed in various states of undress, that she had missed her period. He remembered thinking, what? As if he had been a virgin all through, as if he did not know how fertilization worked. The next day after work, she peed on a stick, and a red line glared back at them. Of course, her father was going to kill him. Of course, he was going to dismember him and spread his limbs all over the city. His head was going to be found buried in Kariobangi, his arm in Ngong, a leg in Uthiru, another leg in a farm in Kitengela. His body parts would just be a homicidal jigsaw puzzle. Now, there are two types of men in this scenario where one finds themselves with a pregnant girlfriend. The first is the type who sneaks out in the middle of the night, never to return. The other type says, fine, why don't you just move in with me then? And that's how some women transition into wives. Sean is the second type of guy, but since her father looked murderous, he decided to play this by the book. He had to officially go to their shags. He had to gather some uncles to go and announce his intentions before the pregnancy became so obvious to the eyes of the public. All of a sudden, he had moved from this guy who lived alone to a guy who was about to become a husband and a father. He did not have time to process this transition and what it meant. He had to look for money to go and visit her parents. Problem was that he was broke. He works in one of the local banks and banks pay shit. He then started selling weed to raise funds. Why weed, you ask? Why not charcoal or mangoes? Well, he had been smoking weed since 2013, so he knew how it worked. He knew what good weed was and where to get it. There was money in weed because there are tens of hundreds of people who smoke it. Good weed, according to him, was from Kahawa area. He had friends in Kahawa, and there was this particular friend of his called Brayo who knew the dealers, so he used to smoke it, or stone like they call it. Anyway, he makes calls to Brayo, who makes calls to other guys, and a kilogram of weed is bought and rolled, and he gets a guy who pushes the product for him. Now, Sean holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree, so he figured he would stretch it. He figured he would use a bit of the sales knowledge he got from school to gain an edge in this business. 1 kilogram of weed was like 20K, so he thought if he sold it in a week or two maximum, he would make like 60K. So he got into business. Man, business was good, and within no time, he realized that he was starting to make more from selling weed than from working in the bank. He could have said, screw this job, man, and he could have gotten into the trade with both feet. But he realized that he needed a cover, a legitimate career as he sold his weed. He raised 100K, gathered his people, and together they went to visit his girlfriend's people, Pasteka, at a place called Githura. He sat quietly as the proceedings went on, allowing his older relatives to navigate the introductions. He was a graduate. He worked at an important bank. He combed his hair. He had clean shoes and he spoke well. They approved of him. So his girlfriend moved in with him as a wife, and as her bump grew bigger and bigger, they started fighting over silly things at first, and he thought, maybe it's just the hormones. She is probably stressed from carrying all that weight, plus she must not enjoy how swollen her legs are and how big her nose had become. Then she started saying she hated it when he smoked weed, and that she did not want him bringing weed to the house, so he stopped smoking it. All that time, she did not know that he was selling weed, of course, but she knew he was smoking it occasionally from back when they were dating. Sean had a maternity cover from work that was so small it could not adequately cover her at the hospital at which she wanted to give birth. By this time, everything was just irritating her, so he needed to raise more money to take her to the hospital she wanted. One day, during his lunch break at the bank, Brayo rings him and says, dude, I have a pal called Salim from Isili who says that there is some good, high quality weed from Moyale which we can sell and really make a killing. Oh yeah? Brayo says, yeah. I think we should get this stuff instead of the weak stuff we've been buying. We need to go straight to the source for this to make business sense. So Sean laughed and said, the source is Moyale, bro. Brayo said, yeah. Cut out the middleman, Kwani. Sean says, that's a mad idea. How are we going to get all that weed back to Nairobi? Then Brayo says, I know a guy. Enter Salim. They sold this business idea to their weed smoking friends who were chaps in their mid-20s, mostly professionals who worked various positions in various offices around town. The idea was for them to grab the opportunity, and they were sold. A few days later, they all agreed to meet Salim. There were 6 of them. They waited for Salim in a cafe in town, and Salim showed up. The plan was for all of them to raise cash and travel to Moyale to buy this special weed. They will also split the cost of transporting the weed back to Nairobi, which they would then pick up in Isili. They asked Salim, how are we sure that we will get our stash in Nairobi? What if something happens? What are the guarantees? Salim leaned back and said simply, leave it to me, like someone who had done this many times. The next day, Sean applied for leave. A week later, they went downtown and hopped into a ratty Moyale bound bus. The 6 of them spread all over the loud bus in order not to arouse any suspicion. They were all graduates. They were all in their 20s. They all were in this weed business to supplement their incomes. The half of them who had jobs at least. It took them around 16 hours and many police roadblocks to get there. It was dark when they finally arrived at the tiny village at the edge of the town. A perfect full moon the size of a giant saucer hung over them, presiding over their entrance. All sound had fallen away. Trees looked like amputated arms of ghosts that refused to grow in the dry earth. They passed lone huts in that darkness that looked like humps of hippos. It was hot and musky. Their shirts clung to their backs.